Welcome. You're now to another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast, where we talk about Latino everything. I'm your host, Crispin Valentin. Make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. You have nothing to lose and so much to gain. The Global Latin Factor brings you an amazing story, powerful story that you're definitely going to get something from. So, the Global Latin Factor on YouTube. Today, we have the amazing story of Hilda La Tamalera, or Hilda, the truth teller. She is going to tell us all about her personal growth journey. Not only that, but her healing journey and the amazing story of how she got started with Tamales, leading all the way to when she was a kid. And now to the episode. Hola, Hilda. Thank you so much for being here.
Hola, thank you for having me.
Yeah. I met you that day. Well, I started seeing your name pop up because of the Hispanic Chamber, the Historical North Side. And then we had the Tamales and Elote Fest, and I got to see you, and I got to... you were the only person... Tamales that was able to try, because you had some vegan ones,
right? And
some people might not like it, so sorry about that.
But they're actually really good.
I tore them up. I ate like half the dozen right there, or how many ever that I got. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I appreciate the time. Before we get started, we're going to start with a segment that I like to call Preguntas al Chile. If you have not subscribed to the channel, I don't know what you're doing. If you're already here, very easy. Not only that, but you'll be able to support our work that we're doing for almost 5 years, empowering and literally showing you amazing Latinos doing amazing things in the community. Hilda, ¿estás lista?
Estoy lista.
Okay. ¿Tacos o tortas?
Tacos.
¿Gorditas or, corn tortillas or flour tortillas?
Ooh, that one's hard. Because it kind of depends what I'm eating, but I'm going to go with flour.
Let me get that mic a little closer to you, por favor. Flour. Okay.
Flour.
Homemade, for sure.
Yes, for sure. Homemade.
Okay.
Not the Mission flour. That doesn't work. I'm sorry.
Are they real
no
tortillas?
offense, but yeah, they're just, the texture's different, the flavor's different.
Are they real tortillas?
I don't think so.
Sorry, Misión. We were just saying.
Yeah.
Just based off our homemade style. Gorditas or pupusas?
Ooh. I love both of them. They're both so good. I'm going to go with pupusas.
Okay. Jarritos or ¿de qué sabor jarritos? What flavor?
Jarritos manzana.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Agua de horchata, jamaica or tamarindo?
Jamaica.
Salsa verde o salsa roja?
I really, I'm a cook. So It really depends what you're eating, but I'm going to go ahead and say verde.
Verde? I love the verde too. The tomatillo. It's just something about the tomatillo with the chile is just like...
It gives it really good flavor. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tomatoes cool sometimes, but, for me, tomatillo. Menudo or pozole?
Pozole.
Salsa Valentina, Tabasco, Cholula, or Tapatio?
I'm going to say Tapatio.
Churros or flan?
Ooh, these are hard. I love to eat, so it's really hard. I'm going to say flan.
Flan. I love to eat too. This is my favorite time of the whatever day.
I agree.
What is your very, 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 very best tamal that anybody should give it a try at any time of the year? What would that be?
At any time of the year. So I think my pork tamales are amazing. They have a lot of flavor, but a lot of people don't eat meat. So I would say the bean and cheese are also a top seller because you can eat them at any time of the year. You don't have to eat meat, right? But the beans are just, I cook them with the chile rojo, guajillo, and there's 3 different types of cheeses in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I put Oaxaca, I put panela, and then I put quesadilla. So they just have a lot of flavor, and they're not heavy, so it's just, you can eat those at any time of the year.
You can eat 5 right now.
I probably could.
20 minutes later, 5 more. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of got the type of genre music, but I'm still gonna ask maybe
Okay.
one of this would something that you might enjoy. Cumbia, salsa, merengue, or bachata dancing. If you want to celebrate something, accomplishment, you sold out all your tamales, you made a goal, you accomplished a goal. What would that be?
Salsa.
Salsa?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you say you want to learn more.
I want to learn how to dance it better. Like I can dance it, but I want to learn how to dance it. Like there's some couples out there that you see them and they're doing all the moves. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do it like that. I can do that like with Tejano music. I can do all the turns. And so I want to be able to be like, look somewhat professional.
Yeah, that's cool. And then, of course, you do like Tejano and Norteña, right?
I do.
Yeah, there's certain moves for those. This is not going to be revealed. There's only going to be off cameras of what I learned about it. But very interesting. Very interesting. Definitely nice. When you hear the word Latino, Latina, what is the very first thing that comes to mind to you?
Culture. Family. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Do you consider yourself Latina? Do you care if anybody calls you Latina? Do you mind? Do you prefer Mexican American, Mexican? What is the best for you?
I'm a Latina. I consider myself a Mexican American. To me, you know, being a Latina or being called a Mexican American, for me, it's the same thing. It's, you know, I stand by my culture, the family traditions that we come from. For me, it's really important. That's the only way that I represent myself.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your story. Very interesting. Hilda La Tamalera, not only that, but you have also something that you do regarding spirituality. So what is the name for that?
That is called... I'm sorry, you got me off guard. So on Facebook, it's Truth Teller.
Truth Teller. Mm-hmm. Truth Teller. Okay, we'll talk about a little bit of everything in between, but definitely more focus on the tamale. But I know that I don't want to leave that piece behind because I feel like if anybody follows you on social media, Facebook, Instagram, most of the days you're met with a nice video of encouraging message of different things.
Yes.
And I think that kind of aligns with that.
I agree.
And then it also ties with the tamales because I think you have to be in a best of mood and a loving mood to be able to have amazing tasting tamales, at least for me.
No, I agree. You know, I think that when I make tamales, I make them with intention. And, you know, I believe in prayer. I believe in praying over food. And I think that food is one of those things that brings people together, families together.
Right.
So if I'm not in a good mood, if I don't, like, even if I just have a slight headache, I will not cook. Because I think that everything has energy, and the energy that you pour into the food, people receive it. So for me, that's really important, you know, that while I'm making the tamales, that, you know, I think about the people that buy them, and I think about them feeling loved and feeling a closeness to home, even if they're far away, that they can be remembered, you know, their family members, their mom, their grandmother, something, but that they can feel the love in the food. So for me, that's really important.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say about gratitude and praying over food because it's a long story, but I'm going to make it shorter. So pretty much the outline of the story is a scientist or a gentleman that was doing polygraph got kind of curious and wanted to strap the plants to see if they had any effects and any readings. So he burned the plant, nothing happened. But then he thought about doing certain things to the plants and he started getting reaction. So he kind of sort of realized the plants have or react to certain things that we say. And one of the things that he noticed is that when he prayed, when he said a prayer to the food for, you know, giving themselves their lives to your nutrition and everything else, all of a sudden, like the plants surrender, and it wasn't too much of a high reading. You'll be able to find somewhere on social media that particular talking about that test itself, and I was very interested because I was trying to figure out where things initiated or why the things that we do, and then praying over the food and things like that kind of makes a lot of sense because the plant, whatever it is, animal itself surrenders to the part that is part of a cycle of life, and it becomes part of you.
I agree 100%. You know, I think that people don't realize that everything around us has energy. You know, I have a beautiful plant in my bedroom, and the first person I say good morning to, because I live alone, is my plant. I tell her good morning every day, and she just continues to grow and provide me good air in my room, you know. But I think if we all were to be grateful that way with everything we come into contact every day, we would be happier. We would be more at peace, right? Because being grateful for everything you have, even if it's the smallest thing, gives you gratitude, and you just start seeing life in a different way.
That's another thing about flowers themselves as well. Talking to them, it makes a huge difference on people's gardens and everything else. My mom has a great thumb, but in addition to just, talk, and anybody that grows plants as a plant that they talk to their plants.
I talk to my plants. You know, I go out to my patio and I'm like, ¿Quién tiene sed? Who's thirsty?
Yeah.
Okay. And, it's almost like I like to feel like it's an energy thing. Like I can feel who needs water. I don't have to necessarily look at the dirt. I can just feel that they need water. Who does and who doesn't,
Yeah, you're in a different level. I would have to look. But if your plants are dying, maybe you need to talk and have more conversations.
Yes.
Don't do a trauma dump on them, but talk to them with love and care.
Yeah, just tell them, hey, I need you to grow. Like, I love you. Grow for me.
Yeah, something like that. Not only like telling her about your business and your day. Plant don't care right now.
Stress them out.
Yeah, stress out the plant, pobrecita, and they dying.
So secar más rápido.
I don't have a green thumb. Like, girl, you have or a man, you have a mouth. The pobrecita plant's not a Nike what you're saying.
That's so funny.
Okay, so Mexican American, you were born here?
I was.
You were raised in Fort Worth?
I was actually raised half of my life in Grand Prairie up until I was 14.
Oh, nice.
And at that time, my parents got divorced and my mom decided to move to Fort Worth. So the rest of my life has been in Fort Worth.
Yeah. As far as your earliest memories in Grand Prairie growing up, what was life for, let's say, a young Latina, young Mexican American at that time?
It was a little hard, I'll be honest. I remember being a kid and going to school and, the teachers make fun of you because, your hair's braided a certain way or, they just look at you different or because you speak Spanish, kind of people looked at you like, why do you speak Spanish? And my parents were really big about at home, we could only speak Spanish. They wouldn't allow us to speak in English. They wanted to make sure that we didn't lose who we were and where we were coming from. So, and even when we went like to McDonald's, if my parents saw that there was a family trying to order y hablaban español, I was like 8 years old and I'm like, go translate, go help them. Right. And that's how we grew up. But at the same time, being in a school where we were a minority, you were looked different. It was hard.
Do you remember as a kid that the actual teachers themselves saying something?
Yeah, I do.
Even as young as that?
Yes. So I remember being in elementary school. I went to Fannin Elementary. And my mom back then, she would put lemon juice in our hair to hold our hair back. So my hair was really long, longer than it is now. And she would make us a chongo, a ponytail. And then she would get lemon juice and kind of put it in our hair to hold our hair back. And the teachers would make fun of, I remember she was my PE teacher. And she was like, what do you have in your hair? And I was a kid and I was like, oh, my mom puts lemon juice in my hair. And then she took me to go tell another teacher and they just laughed at me. And I remember just standing there like not knowing how to defend myself. And not understanding why they were laughing at something that was so normal for me. Yeah. So it was situations like those that just sometimes made you realize, like, I am different.
Did that hurt do anything for you as far as moving forward? I know you felt kind of defenseless at that time with two grown adult teachers telling you and making fun of you.
I think that growing up, I always felt a little bit intimidated. And it's taken me years to realize that I'm strong as a Latina and that there's no reason for me to try to dim my light.
Right.
If anything, I should shine brighter because I'm a Latina.
Absolutely. What is your parents? Do your parents have any interesting story? Are they first generation, second generation? Are they just straight up from Mexico? Or
they're both born in Mexico. I'm first generation here.
Okay.
My mom and my dad are from La Frontera, Reynosa, Tamaulipas. My dad was born in Burgos. So my dad became an American citizen as a child because my grandfather and his older siblings used to come to the States to work in the fields. So that's how my dad became an American citizen. And then after years, he made my mom an American citizen as well.
Yeah. So both of them cross the correct way.
My mom did not.
Okay. So
my mom did not actually. The first time she came to the U.S., she came illegally. and she was actually deported. She's probably gonna get mad at me for telling this story, but she was actually deported, and she was deported with my oldest sister at the time. And then after that, my dad was able to fix her papers, and then she became an American citizen. My mom became an American citizen when I was in middle school. I was about 12 years old.
What does it make you feel to know? I get it. Mamá disculpa. But I'm saying, how does it make you feel of the things that she had to go through, the struggles to get deported, come back, and still make a life for herself, and knowing about that history for you?
I'm really proud of her. My mom is a very strong woman. And, I think sometimes I don't tell her enough how proud I am of her being my mom and what she's taught me. I wouldn't know how to make tamales if it wasn't for her. There was a time in my life where my mom supported us making tamales. I was in middle school at the time. It was when my parents got divorced. And she would sell so many tamales. And at the time I was a kid, I didn't understand it. I didn't appreciate the hard work. I would have to help her, which is how I learned to make tamales. Mm-hmm. But I didn't understand how much your hands hurt and your elbow hurts from amasando, and how much hard work it was to amasar all that masa with the chile and the lard. And I remember about the second time that I made tamales to sell, that I had a lot of orders. I was making them by myself. I'll never forget. It was probably like midnight, and I'm at home amasando, and my elbow started hurting. And I remember I just started to cry because I realized at that moment how much pain my mom went through. And I don't think I give her enough credit sometimes.
Yeah, I think she'll appreciate it now, those kind words that you just said. Okay, at 14 or so, you said, roughly, whenever your parents got divorced?
Yes.
Was there an understanding that was happening at that time for your parents? Or did you know what was going on? Or all of a sudden you just had to move forward with your mom and your dad just staying back?
It was really hard. My dad had actually moved to South Texas. Mm-hmm. That's where the majority of our family's from. And, I had gone to school with the same kids my whole life since kinder. And then all of a sudden it was Thanksgiving break, and we're moving to Fort Worth. And back then there was no social media. There was no cell phones back then. So it's like your whole life just gets picked up and it gets moved. So it was really hard. It was a hard time.
Mm-hmm. How was Fort Worth at that time when you were 14? How was the culture, the kids, and everything else as far as education? Is it better than Grand Prairie? Are you the minority still, or even more?
So in Northside Fort Worth, when we moved there, I wasn't the minority anymore, but it was very different. When I was in school at Grand Prairie High, I went to North Grand Prairie High. I was in a cappella choir. I was in theater arts. And I go to Northside High, and they only have mariachi, and they don't have theater art. So it was a drastic change. And those two things, theater arts and a cappella choir, is what got me not to be a troublemaker in school. It's what got me to act right after my parents got divorced. After my parents got divorced, it affected me in a negative way to where I was angry. And a teacher, actually, I thank her so much. Her name was Miss White. She looked at me and she said, "You need direction." And she got me into theater arts, and I got into a cappella choir, and it changed me. And I started being a good student again. And then we moved to Fort Worth, and those two things that had me going in a straight line were gone. So it was really hard.
When she said you need direction, did you get it?
Not at the time.
What she was saying?
No, not at all. I didn't, and I'm so grateful for her, because even though that direction was for a short period of time, it was for about 2 years, it helped me a lot.
Okay, so you get to Fort Worth now, you just have mariachi and not the other one. So what is there to do for you at that time?
Nothing. Okay. To get in trouble.
So trouble? So
what does
trouble look for Hilda at that time? What is it? What years is it during that time?
This would have been like early 1990s. So
in the 90s, it's very popular at that time. Gangs and all kinds of stuff. Even people might think that there's no gangs here in Texas.
I know there is.
Dallas, there was.
There was. And I think the weirdest thing for me was that when I went to Northside back then, you had the magnet student, which was really smart kids that you never saw. They were like on the third floor. And then you had the kids that dressed Tejano. And then you had the cholos and the cholas. And I felt like, okay, where do I fit? Mm-hmm. So it was really hard. It was hard trying to find my place.
And you found your place where exactly during that time?
I actually left.
You left?
I did. I started skipping school, unfortunately, and I ended up leaving.
Okay. So you dropped out of school?
I did. I ended up getting pregnant with my son.
Mm.
And then I went back and I got my GED afterwards.
Okay. So after, now you have a kid. Is Tamales a thing now that you want to kind of sort of like make a living, or is there another things that you're getting yourself into as far as the workforce?
No, I actually got into the workforce, into finance. I started off as a collector in the auto finance industry, and my parents.
If you owe her money, you better pay up.
You better.
She know how to get a hold of you.
I've learned not to let people borrow money. It's the best way.
Golden rule. Sorry.
Golden rule. No, I got into the finance industry, and thankfully, because of my work ethic and my desire to grow, I grew with the companies that I worked with. I became a member of management by the time I was 21.
Oh, wow.
And I just continued to grow. My last position within finance company was a senior manager. And then just recently now, I switched over to a technology company as a director of customer operations.
Nice. Congratulations. How does that feel to be able to be in that particular role for yourself as a Latina, as having to be able to evolve as a professional in that part?
I feel proud, honestly, coming from, I feel like I beat all those statistics, right? I was a young mom, single mom. With no education, really. Mm-hmm. And I pushed myself as much as I could to learn everything about the industry, to continue to grow and become somebody. I remember people would laugh at me because I would always listen and read self-development books. Right. Nobody ever wanted me in their book club because I didn't want to read romantic books. I wanted to read self-development books. I wanted to learn, how can I become better? Mm-hmm. How can I grow? And because I was in leadership and I managed people, I was always reading books about leadership and learning how to communicate and talk to people. So I'm really proud of myself for being where I am today with the limited education that I received.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. If you're a pet owner who wants real talk on training, behavior, and everyday life with animals, check out the Fresh Patch Podcast. Hosted by Drew and Gabe, we cover the wins, the challenges, and everything in between. So wherever you listen, search the Fresh Patch Podcast, where good pets get it.
When does the desire to even start doing self-development come from? Like, who introduced you to that? Like, is there a particular event you say, oh, there's more? I'm not maxed out in my knowledge. I could probably just do maybe education. The formal one is not a thing, but I really like this. Do you remember when that happened?
It was when I applied for a leadership role and I received it. I was young. I was 21 at the time. I was a kid. Mm-hmm. But I had a lot of responsibilities. I already had a son, so I had to work, right? And I had to make a living. And, I realized that I needed to learn how to talk to people. I think that's one of the biggest areas where nobody teaches us, unfortunately, how to communicate properly. As a kid, you're growing up, and most of us, in the environment that we grow up in, when your parents are disappointed, they're mad. Mm-hmm. When your parents are sad, they're mad. Yeah. When your parents are every emotion they reflect is mad. Even if they're disappointed, if they're worried, están enojados, mm-hmm. right? Llegaste tarde, ¿dónde andabas? Right? And they always show that anger, that madness, but you never get taught how to actually show that you care or that you're concerned. And having to manage people, I was having to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to communicate with people and ask them, like, why are you failing in this area? What can I do to help you? And I had never been taught that. So the only way for me to learn was by reading these self-development books. And that's what I did.
Within the having to evolve into the role and not knowing, having the tools of the way that you grew up, is like, I need to be, if I'm going to be successful, how do you know personal development books was the way to go?
I want to say it was a manager that I had that gave me my first book for me to read, and it was called Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh, yeah. Very familiar with that book.
Yes.
Okay. At that time, are you still kind of angry at the moment of time? Are you kind of sort of like starting to work into that to where you realize, because I remember you said a little bit you were angry, but growing up, having to take responsibilities, you kind of sort of never address those things. You just keep going and going.
I just kept going.
Okay.
And, I think that's the biggest, I think that's one of the things that affects so many people today, that, you don't deal with those traumas and those wounds that you have, and you just keep pushing forward because that's how we're built and that's how we're told to do. You got to be strong. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. And you just keep doing it. And then one day you wake up and you say, what now? Like, I feel empty. And, that's what happened to me in my life several years ago. I was tired of failure in personal relationships. I was tired of feeling empty. And that's when I started to do some work and doing some internal healing and letting go of that anger. And that's when my life turned around 100%.
Let's talk about that before we get to Tamales. We're going to get to that because that's the reason why I met you. But
Yes.
I think this is just part of the foundation of
Okay.
to be able to get to that point.
Okay. I agree.
Healing. What made you, you're feeling empty, healing. Who introduced you to the first thing of like, maybe you can heal because maybe you still have some anger of things that you saw, things you experienced, things that you didn't realize. Forgiveness. And who introduced you to forgiveness as far as a thing that you need to do to be able to be better off? Do you remember?
I do. It's very present. I got to a point in my life where I didn't want to be here anymore. I would cry on my way home. I would cry on my way to work. I felt like a failure. And even though everybody who saw me thought I was so put together, because that's the person I presented to everybody, that I had all my things ready. Like I was, intelligent. I had a good job. I have good kids, and everybody thought my life was great because that's what I showed everybody, just like so many people do on social media, right? You go on there and you say, oh, my life is great. Everything's great. But then behind all of that, I was very depressed, very. And I got to a point where my kids were older. My daughter was in college. My son was married. And I felt like they don't need me anymore. And maybe they'd be better off with my life insurance and with me. And I literally felt that way. I felt like, I just didn't want to continue to make the same wrong choices. And there came a point where I had to stop and ask myself, what is the common denominator in all these situations in my life? And it was me. I was the common denominator. And I remember I was scrolling through Instagram, and I was on a lot of medications. I was on an antidepressant. I was on sleeping pills. I was on ADHD medication. You name it, I was on it. And I was still drinking a quad latte every day, right? Just to get me through the day. And I was always reactive, very reactive. Like I had a chip on my shoulder because I felt I needed to defend myself from everybody. And I was on Instagram one day and I saw this reel about this man, and he was saying how he had gone to this event and he was speaking at this event, and he was saying that they had like a meditation, and he said, I came here to find out why I'm always angry. Today in this breath work, I realized why I'm angry. I'm angry because I never defend myself. I always do for other people. And when I heard that, it just hit me in a certain way. And I was like, that's me. I'm always angry. I'm always mad, and I don't know why. And I ended up going to this event. The person that does this event, the event's called Awaken, and it's with Danny Morell. He's an amazing person. He's on Instagram. And I went, and it taught me the very first time I went. It was a 3-day event in Austin. When I went, I was just so lost. I didn't know what I was going to do. For the first time in 10 years, I was taking a real vacation from work where I was turning off my laptop, turning off my cell phone. And in those 3 days, I learned that I didn't know how to love myself. That I was so busy trying to love other people that I had forgotten who I was. And in that time, I realized that in order for you to truly love someone without any obligation or resentment, you have to love yourself. You can't give what you don't have. And that's how my journey started, attending that Danny Morell program in Austin that's called Awaken. And he still does them. I highly recommend everybody and anybody to go to them, because you realize that you've been kind of like taught to live life just the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're so willing to give someone our time and our energy, yet we don't do it for ourselves. And then at the end of the day, you feel empty.
Right.
And you ask yourself, like, I gave this person so much. Why don't they give me the same back? But it doesn't work that way. The moment that you start to love yourself, you learn to value yourself, your time, your energy, your love. And then you realize this person isn't giving me what I deserve. And you start looking for what actually you deserve, because now you love you and you know what you should be capable and should deserve to receive on a day-to-day basis. And then when you give love, it's different. You don't feel that necessity of receiving it back, because you're giving it out of true love, not out of obligation.
Right.
And I always give this scenario because I think it's so funny, but it's so real. My daughter, I love her. Her name's Angelica. And I would always ask her when she'd get home from school, "Are you hungry?" And she would always say, "Huh?" And I'm like, "Are you hungry?" And she would say, "Oh my God, Mom, why do you ask me like that?" I'm like, "How do you want me to ask you? Like, are you hungry? Yes or no?" Right? Like, either I'm going to make something or I'm going to buy something. And when I started to love myself, it was just like this aha moment, right? I remember waking up and I made breakfast and I said, "Mamita, I made food if you're hungry." And at that moment, it just hit me. I no longer was cooking and making something to eat out of obligation because I'm her mom.
Or to show affection.
Mm-hmm. I made it because I love her and I wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. It was just so different. And for me, that was like one of those aha moments where I was like, oh, wow, that's so beautiful to make her something to eat porque me nació del corazón hacerlo. Not because she's hungry, not because I know I have to do it, but just because I wanted to do it. Mm.
Take me back to that event. There's it could be one or two moments where all of a sudden it just everything hits you really hard, to whether it would be taking you to a breath work exercise or something else, and all of a sudden you're like party bawling in tears and realizing, oh my God, this is where it comes from.
You know, I was so broken at the time, honestly, that I remember.
So the whole 3 days you were crying?
Oh, yeah. The whole 3 days I was crying. I was crying on the way there. I mean, I was crying on the way there and I was praying and asking God that I found something, because I felt so lost, you know. And getting there, I remember when he started asking questions about, you know, what's your biggest fear? Right. And then really going into, why do you feel that way? Why do you have that fear? And just realizing that all of it comes from our childhood trauma sometimes. And sometimes it's things that happen to us. And sometimes it's generational trauma, meaning something happened to your parent. And because it happened to your parent, they reacted a certain way with you. And now you're having to deal with it as well. And just realizing that helped me so much. I remember I came back to work and I started having boundaries. I had no boundaries. I didn't know how to have boundaries. Nobody taught me how to have boundaries. And some people may say, well, you don't need to be taught how to have boundaries. Well, if you grow up in an environment where there is no boundaries, you don't even know what it means, you know? And I remember that I used to, people would come to my desk at work and ask me questions. And I would always stop what I was doing and help them. And then I was at work at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night trying to finish my job. And I started having boundaries. And I would say, people would come to my desk and want to ask me something. And I'd say, if this is going to take more than 5 minutes, I need you to put it on my calendar. And people would look at me like I was crazy. They're like, what? I'm like, you want to leave at 5, so do I. And it was little things like that I started doing, and learning how to say no when I didn't want to do something. Because when you don't know how to have boundaries, saying no seems mean to you. You think like, I'm being rude, you know, if I say no. And it's not. It's just learning to have boundaries and saying, I don't feel like that's something I want to do, so I'm not going to do it.
What about forgiveness in the 3 days? Was there any of that part that you had to work through for the things that happened with your mom, your dad, and things that you carry?
Yes. I actually went to his event 3 times. And every time it was something different that I was able to let go of. And I think the first time that I went, the most important person I had to learn to forgive was myself. You know that saying when they say forgiveness is for you and not for them? It truly is true, 100%. Like, sometimes the person that we're most upset with is ourselves for the choices that we've made or for the choices that we failed to make. and we're angry with ourselves and we hold resentment with ourselves. And because of that, we feel that we don't deserve more or that we're in a bad place and that's where we deserve to be. So I think the first time I went, the most important person I learned to forgive was myself for choices that I had made that I wish I hadn't. And I had to learn to have grace with myself and learn that at that moment when I made that choice, it was the best choice that I thought at that moment with what I knew. Today I know better, right? And today I'd say I'd make a different decision. But at that time, it was just that. And with that being said as well, I had to learn to accept the fact that everything that happens to us is with a reason. There's a purpose behind it. And I say this all the time in my social media stories. Every obstacle is an opportunity, if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Right? Because every obstacle is showing you something that needs to change. So you either change it or you stay stuck. And it's a choice that you make.
Something interesting that people don't realize is within the things that you do, as far as like self-work, is accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very easy to point the finger at everybody else and it's never your fault. Do you remember the moment was like, I know you had talked a little bit about it, but can you just go a little bit deeper for like, oh, wait a minute. I need to be responsible for my actions to be able to have control of the things that I need to change for myself.
Yes. And, going to that event really showed me that. Like, I realized that all of my failures, I was the common denominator, right? But when you're in that, they call it the victim mode, right? You don't realize it. A todos le quieres echar culpa. You want to blame everybody for what's going on in your life. Your parents, your children, your sister, your ex. You want to blame everybody, but you don't take that accountability of what did I do to choose to be in that situation. And it was hard at first because I wanted to blame everybody for where I was. I wanted to blame my ex for the financial hardship he had put me in, I wanted to blame, my mom for me being angry. I wanted to blame my dad for leaving and for me always wanting to find this love that I couldn't find. I wanted to blame the whole world, right? But I had to remember and realize that it was me. I have a choice, right? I had a choice. No one told me to date this person. No one told me go get these loans. No one said say no to that job opportunity. Nobody did. Nobody put a gun to my head.
Right.
I chose to do those things. I saw that opportunity that I thought it was an opportunity. I said, hey, I'm going to go for it. And even though there may have been things that were like red flags that people call, I ignored them and I kept going. So it was hard. It was a process. It wasn't easy to say, this is my fault. I created the environment that I'm in, and now it's my responsibility to get out of that environment.
After that, all those things that happen eventually get to a point you are very empathetic, or even the other people, not to excuse for the things that they do and hold them accountable for the things that they do, but kind of sort of like look back and like, oh, that's why the way they are, or this is why the things that the way they are, they carry over to me, and kind of like sort of decipher and like, have empathy for them, but at the same time, you're like, oh, wow, I see why they are the way they are. Do you remember when that happened?
Yes. And I think it happened when I realized why I was the way that I was, right? When I realized why I reacted the way I did to certain situations or people, I realized that we're all a product of our childhood, of how we were showed love or not shown love, how we were showed to communicate or not learn to communicate.
Right.
So I started having more empathy for people. I started just looking at someone and just saying like, man, this person really lacked their motherly love, or they just didn't have the guidance. And I would just now, when I see someone react a certain way, I'm not going to say I don't ever get triggered or I don't get mad, but I stop and I think there's a reason why they react that way. And then I just have grace for them, because unfortunately, sometimes some people don't realize even why they do what they do. And that's part of why I do my stories on social media, to be positive. And I tell people to take accountability, that to smile, to be happy, to be grateful, even if it's just saying you're grateful that you woke up, right? But because once you start changing your mindset on how you see things, your life changes. It truly does.
Do you remember when it clicked for you? When all of a sudden you started realizing, just growing up the way that you were, all of a sudden the way that you were talking to yourself, even if it's in a joking manner, all of a sudden like, oh, wait a minute. My mind doesn't realize that, and I have to switch it around, because even though it's in joking or saying this, the brain can't distinguish the difference.
It doesn't. And, I used to be, people sometimes don't believe, but I used to be so negative. Like I would always say, eso me va a pasar a mí. Oh, that happened. Oh, that's going to happen to me. And I didn't even realize that that's how I lived my life. Just, I tell people all the time, our words are so powerful. What we speak, you're not just speaking it, but you're hearing it, and your mind is thinking it, right? So even if I tell everybody all the time, for every negative comment you say, replace it with 2 positive things. I used to be so bad about saying I was stupid. You're doing so, I'm so stupid. And you keep telling yourself
funny
that
right now saying it?
Yes, it does. You keep saying, I'm not stupid, but you keep saying that, and you start believing that you're stupid, and you start believing that you're limited. So it was little things like that I had to change. And the way that I started was every morning I would wake up and I would write 10 positive affirmations about myself. And I'll tell you, at the beginning, I had to Google them because I had no positive affirmations about myself. But that's how I changed my life. Like Danny actually has this book that you would buy, and you would write down 4 things that you were grateful for the previous day. 10, I think it's like 6 things that made you smile the day before. And at first I was so down that I didn't know what to write. I'd say I was happy for the grass. I was happy for the sun, because I didn't know what else to say. And sometimes it was repetitive, but the more I started saying positive things every morning, that's how I would start my day. The more I started doing it, the more happy I became, and the more my life started to change. Prior to that, I would wake up in the morning and I'd grab the laptop. Y me ponía a trabajar. So my whole life was work. And the moment that I woke up and I started my day with a different intention of waking up and being grateful for the opportunities I had the previous day, and then saying these positive affirmations that sometimes I didn't even believe them, but I was like, I'm saying them. I would write them, and then I would speak them out loud. And I would make sure that when I would speak them out loud, I meant it, that I could feel that I was those things. And before I knew it, I started thinking differently. I started changing the things that I listened to. I started changing the things that I allowed my mind to absorb. Right. I hate these shows on TV nowadays, these reality TV shows. It's just drama. And then you wonder why you have so much drama in your life. That's all you feed yourself.
Yeah, you want to eventually some way, somehow embody those things in your real life, and it will happen for you.
It will, yeah. and just starting my day that way changed so much. And I share that with people all the time. Like, take 5 minutes out of your day in the morning and start it with an intention. Tell yourself you're going to have a good day. Tell yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am doing a hell of a job, right? Give yourself those props. The way you're so willing to give them to somebody else, give them to yourself. And the moment you do that, and you do it continuously, your mind will shift, and you'll start believing the things that you tell it.
So once you get to that point, kind of sort of the things that bad decisions that you made and everything else, you all of a sudden started clicking that there were experiences for you to get to the point where you're at.
Yes.
And now you're more knowledgeable, more wise of the things that you are not going to do anymore, right?
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Cool. So the truth teller, is that just something that you do as far as, are you just structuring it as a business, or you just rather just have it to where people can go and kind of sort of get words of encouragement for them to their day? Or how does that, you have it down, or what is it that entails that?
So
the truth teller.
The truth teller goddess space is, I share things about, for example, like the energy of the moon, and I share, plant medicine as well. I believe in plant medicine, and there's certain things that sometimes people have anxiety, energy cleansing. So it's things like that. I try to guide people when they need help. I don't like the name life coach at all, because I think it's overused and underused in the wrong way. So I think that I'm here to guide people when they need guidance, when they feel alone. I'm here to remind them how to find themselves, truly, because that's what we forget. We forget who we are. We forget how we were created, and I'm just here to help people remind them that.
Whenever you say uh, in the sense of religious purpose, God.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you talk about this particular part, some people don't seem to be thinking that it's the same thing or aligned. They're very contradicting.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage to where you can still say God and you still are working with this plant medicines and all the other alternative things that you might be able to help you be better off and help you grow? How do you maneuver those things?
You know, it's very difficult at times because religion has taught people that there's these parameters that you have to stay within. And
there's this road, you better not get off of it.
Yeah.
It's gonna cost you.
Yes, it's gonna cost you. God's gonna punish you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when I first started this journey, it was really hard for me to explain it to people and not get upset, in the sense of I would tell people, we have two different gods. My God does not punish me. Why would you think God would punish you? God is love,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what I tell people is that God blessed us all with so many gifts, so many. It's your choice to be aware of them and to guide people. We all have that inner intuition. We all have it. Some of us just choose to listen to it more than others. God made us in his vision. God lives within us, right?
And his image as well.
Exactly. So why would you think that you don't have the ability to help somebody? God created the plants. He created everything. And everything he created was for a purpose and a reason to help us. You know, I tell people, go hug a tree. I do it all the time. And if you hug that tree and you truly just hug it and say, I give you all this negative energy or this heavy anxiety that I feel. And if you truly feel that, you will feel lighter.
And there's science behind it.
There's science behind it. There is.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's so crazy. People rather take a prescribed medication that causes your liver to stop working or causes something else to hurt your body than to take something natural that actually heals your body.
No, it's a system. Like they give they give you the thing to mess up your liver, so they can give you the other thing to fix your liver, to give you the next
It's a
thing.
cycle.
It's a huge cycle. And the funniest thing is it's a huge cycle in general for the breathing part, right? Yeah. Whatever you breathe out, the trees breathe in. Mm-hmm. And whatever they breathe out, you breathe in. Yeah. So it's a constant thing that we never think about that happens, but it is.
It is.
And then let's not get into pharma because I'm not a fan of them at all. Never
but,
will be.
I'll tell you, recently, you know, we had the blood moon here in March, and someone asked me, like, why do you believe in that? And I actually said it in my story. If you don't believe in the energy of the moon and the stars, then how do you explain that 3 wise men followed a star to find Jesus?
Not only that, but even women, pregnancy, it has a lot to do with the moon itself.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. You know, the moon is considered a feminine energy, and it's so beautiful. And the sun is considered a masculine energy, right? But we need both of them. And I think that the analogy between that is that even as humans, you need to have both energies within you. You need to have the masculine energy, and you have to have that feminine energy for you to be able to be balanced. And that's how our days are balanced, with the sun and the moon.
So as far as people wanting to, you help them out with certain of those things, that can reach out to you to kind of sort of, what is like per se the process for them to, if anybody wants to kind of sort of like open their minds to different things, which again, is nothing against religion at all. It's just
no, not
a
at
different
all.
path. No, at the end of the day, like truly at the end of the day, if anybody starts thinking about it and like really analyze, we are literally talking to the same God, but in different names. Allah, Buddha, God, whatever you want to name it. We literally are speaking to the same.
It is.
But
it's a creator.
But we hold on to the particular name to where it offends other people, even though we're speaking about the same higher being.
I agree. You know, at the beginning, I used to always say divine, and people were like, who's divine? And I'm like, it's God. It's everything.
Why don't you just say God?
Yeah, why don't you just say God then? Are you like, I remember someone asked me one day, are you a hippie now? Are you in a cult? And I'm like, no. But I'll tell you that in this journey, I found something that I had never found before. I always looked for God when I go to church or when I'd read the Bible. And in my journey, I realized that I found God
So
inside of me.
within.
He was inside of me the whole time.
There's even the books that
Yes.
say everything's within.
Yes.
People just read that and shoo.
Yeah. So the whole time I was like, God, where are you? God, God, help me. And then I realized, oh my God, God lives inside of me. And he's been with me this whole time. This whole time. So, I tell people it's the same God. It's just that sometimes religion makes you think that there's these certain rules. And unfortunately, people just aren't educated enough to realize even why religion was created. It was created to create division. That's what it was created for, It saddens me sometimes when I see so many people say that they're a specific religion. And if they really went back, they'd realize that their ancestors were murdered because of this religion.
Yeah.
That they are so held on to. And it saddens me. I'm like, do you realize that your ancestors' elders were hung because of this religion? And it's just sad. It saddens me, that we're not educated enough and that we just believe what people tell us. They don't realize that.
But they like people like you that don't listen to just walk the straight path in that sense.
Yeah.
That whatever they say you do, and that's that, and there's nothing more.
Yeah. It's like they follow this religion, not realizing that their ancestors were made to follow it. It wasn't a choice. They didn't want to.
And by made, mean whipped,
killed,
incarcerated until you're able to bend the knee, per se,
Yes.
to be able to accept it. So is that loving?
I know. It's
is
not.
That love?
It's not. And, I tell people all the time, God is love. Don't say that you believe in God. Show it. Show it in your daily actions.
Right.
Right? Are you kind to your neighbor? Are you kind to that person that's walking that you don't know? I am shocked at how many times I'm walking and I say, good morning, good morning, good morning. And la gente is just like.
I feel funny about saying that word, good morning, in the sense of the structure of the word. I'd rather say hello and buenos dias.
Yeah.
I just rather.
Yeah.
Me da cosa. To be honest.
No, I
there's
agree.
Nothing, even that itself is the programming of that to your day already, at least for me.
No, so I like to say grand rising, but then people look at me, they're like, ¿qué es eso? Like, grand rising, ¿quién se levantó? And I'm like, tú te levantaste, Yeah. But, it's, people just are so used to.
I like buenos dias.
Buenos dias is beautiful too. I do. I always say, what do I say? I don't even know what I say. I think I say hola. I don't know what I say. I just say it. People ask me sometimes, like, how do you know what you're going to talk about? And honestly, I don't until I start recording it. Every morning, the first thing I do is I ask God to help me be of service to someone else in need. And I pray that if my video helps one person, like that one video helped me, then I'll keep doing it every day. And, that's the reason why I do these videos. When I realized that God was within me and when I felt that beautiful love for the first time and I felt that abundance of like brightness within me, I felt an obligation at that point that I needed to share that with everybody. And that's why I do my videos.
Tell me a little bit more about that feeling in that particular moment of time. What happened? What did it feel? What did it sense like? What did it overcome you with?
Well, it goes a little deeper. I actually sat with ayahuasca and I went to Costa Rica, about 3 years ago. And after my fourth ceremony, it just hit me like, this is what you're destined to do. Like, you are going to go out there and tell people how beautiful life is. And you're going to share that love that you now feel. You're going to share it with the world. And it was almost, before that, I would always worry about what people thought about me. I always wanted to fit in. My whole life, I always wanted to fit in. I was that person, I still am, where I know so many people in different ethnicities, different classes, and you can put me anywhere. I'm like a chameleon. I will fit in, right? Because I always wanted to feel like I fit in somewhere. And today I accept the fact that I don't fit in anywhere, that I am different and I am just me, but I am here to help people feel that love and that opportunity that they have to truly learn. That's what we're here for, to love one another, to help one another, and we're so stuck sometimes that we don't realize it. And we're just so busy trying to make money,
right,
that we get lost.
Right. I love the fact that everything came full circle for you, that because of a video that changed your life, that pushed you in a path to be able to discover yourself and everything else that opened up to now you currently wanting to not necessarily repay the favor, but that somewhere out there it's like having those really, really dark thoughts to be, what is the meaning of just being here in general? There's no sense for me to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And yet even the little things with the frequency of your voice to be able to maybe somebody today made that difference for them to just keep going forward.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think it took me a while to, the moment the moment that I learned to love myself and I sat with ayahuasca, it was almost like this heaviness was lifted off of me. And I realized that, in order for me to be happy, I needed to be true to myself and who I am. And that's what I try to do every day. And that's kind of how the tamal thing came about. I was wanting to go to Peru for 2 weeks to sit in dieta with ayahuasca. And I didn't want to put it on like a credit card because I was like, this is a spiritual trip. I don't want to get dead over it, right?
Right.
And I was sitting at home and I thought to myself, how am I going to make extra money? And it was just like this voice said, sell tamales. And I was like, oh no, that's a lot of work. I'm not selling tamales. And I kind of pushed it away. And then I remember that same week I was at work and I was talking to a coworker. And I don't even know how or why. I just said.
Was it around Christmas time?
No, it wasn't even around Christmas time. It was around October.
And what year was this?
This was back we're in 26 now, so 24.
So 24.
So I had this thought to sell tamales, and I was like, no, that's a lot of work. I need to figure out a different way to make extra money for this trip. And then I'm at work one day, and I don't even know why. De la nada, I'm talking to this guy, and I tell him, Daniel, if I sell tamales, would you buy some? And he looks at me and he goes, claro que sí, Hildita. ¿Cuándo los vas a hacer? And I was like, next Friday. And he said, okay. So next Friday comes around and he calls me and he's like, where are my tamales? And I had not made tamales.
Ooh, no.
And I was like, oh my God, Daniela, I'm so sorry. I'll have them next week. And at that moment, I opened up Canva. I made myself a flyer and I sent it out to some of the guys that work at my job at the dealerships. I was like, these guys are used to just eating anything. Hopefully they'll buy them. And they've known me for years, right? I felt comfortable selling it to them. And I remember the first week I sold 12 dozen and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I never realized what the tamales were really going to do for me. I thought it was just going to be just me making some income, but it became more than that. It became me being able to show our tradition, our culture, and being able to educate people on what tamales really are and where they come from. Because for me, I tell people, this isn't just about me making tamales. It's me leaving something for my daughter, for my granddaughter, for them to know who we are, our culture. Tamales go back so far. Mesoamerica, right? They were making tamales because it was easy to carry them for them to carry in either a banana leaf or a corn husk. There's a belief with the Mayans that we're people of the corn. Corn is sacred, and I just think it has so much meaning, so much power that it's something that brings people together. It doesn't matter who you are or what ethnicity you are.
I mean, it's to people that don't understand that phrase. It's we're people of the corn. Like you're literally, the corn comes from the ground, and then we get to consume it, and it becomes part of our body.
Yeah,
there's nothing crazy to it, but that.
Yeah,
but we just take it for granted because we just get to eat it easily. But if you really think about it, that's what it is. We are. That's our diet. Typical diet. 7 days a week, just about, to be able to eat corn. And again, comes from the ground. So we go back to the ground.
Yeah.
So
it's a beautiful story that the Mayans actually have. I actually studied it for a little bit because I was interested in cacao. I don't know if you ever heard of cacao. It's the chocolate.
I had a very lovely ceremony
on my
beautiful
trip.
But let me just, before we get to the cacao, I just want to go back a little bit just slightly. Your very first, you're about to make the tamales. What is the emotion behind you getting to do? Is everything like coming back to you in memory as far as remembering when your mom and you used to make it?
Yes.
Or
yeah, so the very first time I started making tamales, I was scared. I'll be honest, I was scared because I thought, what if they don't like the way they taste? What if they don't taste good? And I didn't even tell my mom I was going to sell tamales. I went and I bought the masa and I got the carne and I cooked it and I did everything. COVID actually caused me to learn how to make tamales by myself, when everybody had to stay away from everybody. So that was the first time I had made tamales by myself, was during COVID. Prior to that, I always made them with my mom. So I made these tamales and it was scary, but it was beautiful at the same time because I realized that I was able to create an income for myself based on something that my mom taught me, something that was part of my culture, something that went back to my childhood. Tamales is something that people normally make as a family together. It's a bunch of people, tias, abuelitas, primas, everybody, right? Everybody has their own little job to do. So it brought a lot of emotion, honestly, and it just made me realize just how beautiful that tradition is.
Were you putting intentions already on as far as the making tamales, or you just want to get them done for the first time and see how that
No,
works?
I had intentions. My biggest intention was that they liked them. Honestly, that was my biggest intention. And, I feel that when you do things, not just for yourself, but for others, then it just returns to you tenfold, right? So for me, as I was making these tamales, I was like, God, may they savor them. May they enjoy these tamales, and the money that they pay for these tamales, may they receive it back tenfold, right? Literally was my prayer. Like, may they like them so much that they have the ability to keep buying them later. And it's amazing how it just happened that way. And I'll tell you, when I first started selling tamales, I was cutting myself short. I was actually selling them less than everybody else was selling them because I felt I had to. It's that little voice inside of you that tells you that maybe you're just not doing enough and you're not good enough. Yeah.
You're not good enough.
And I'll tell you, I raised my prices to the normal price because of a customer. This customer told me, these are the best tamales in DFW. Why are you selling them for less? And it was like the light switch turned on, and I remembered everything I've supposedly learned. Why am I cutting myself short? Because no one's going to see your value unless you know your value. And I raised the price, and people kept buying them.
As far as tamales, like, what was the feeling behind selling the first dozen and getting the first?
Oh man, there was an ego. I had some ego there. Honestly, it was a beautiful transition because at first I was afraid to post it on social media. I was afraid of what people were gonna say. I thought they're gonna think I'm broke. People are going to be like, oh my God, Hilda's selling tamales. Because in Mexico, a tamalera is not something to be proud of. It really isn't. And I remember one man one time told me, un señor mexicano me dijo, ¿sabes por qué eres tan chingona? And I was like, no, ¿por qué? He goes, porque tú dices que eres tamalera con orgullo. And I was like, yeah, I am. I'm proud of being a tamalera. And I am. And when people ask me what I do for a living, I tell them, well, I have a lot of jobs, but one of the ones that I is close to my heart is being a tamalera. And they're like, you're a tamalera? And I'm like, yeah. Like, for me to say that I'm a tamalera or I'm, this truth teller goddess that I'm here to help people is more important than me being a director for this technology company, for me personally.
The crazy thing is that some chefs are not willing to go through the process of making tamales because of how strenuous, how hard it is to be able to make tamales. That's why it takes the whole family sometimes to make tamales.
It does. It's a lot of work, but I think that putting in that work is what actually, it's part of putting in your love into them as well.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I actually enjoy making them. I know that sounds crazy because it is a lot of work, but I enjoy making them. I enjoy just when I hear people telling me, people text me, oh my God, Hila, these tamales are so good. Or this reminded me of my abuelita. Or I hadn't had tamales like this since my mom passed away. That emotion, that feeling it's priceless.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Before we keep going with the tamales, you were talking about the cacao part. Tell me a little bit more about that before we.
So
continue.
I wanted to learn more about cacao because I wanted to serve cacao, and cacao is a chocolate from the Amazon, and it's a heart opener, right? So it opens your heart and it allows you drink this, you drink it like hot chocolate, right? It's prepared, and then you meditate. But it allows you to release emotions, right? So when I was going to learn how to serve cacao, I wanted to learn from where it came from, which is from the Mayans. So the Mayans have this beautiful story of how we're believed to be people of the corn, right? So when I learned, that's how I learned that we are people from the corn. And I thought it was so amazing, the story behind it. And I don't remember it 100%, but you know, the story that they say is that before people of the corn, there was people of wood and there was people of stone, right? And the people of stone and of the wood, they weren't bendable, and they were taking advantage of the animals and the plants, right? Yeah. So they were removed, and then people of the corn came in, and the gods gave people of the corn a heart and a soul so that they could be better than the people of the wood, who were just hard and strenuous and didn't care for one another or for the earth. So it's a beautiful story. And, I think it's so important when people understand where we come from, or the stories, the analogies that are built behind it, because they have so much meaning. And I think that's part of what's lost today in society, that people don't really even understand where their ancestors came from or why they do what they do. So if you notice, a lot of times Mexicanos in their kitchen, they would have like the ceramic corn hanging.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, why do they have that in the kitchen? But it goes back all the way to the Mayans, to where it was believed the Mayans, the kitchen was their main entry of their home. Their home was a circle, and the kitchen was in the middle, right? And that's where like families came together. And that's where it's said that the corn grew out of that area in the kitchen.
So to my understanding, because I've done a couple episodes on cacao and not chocolate, that's the aftermath.
Yes.
Guatemala. So I need to actually update it, because the data that I had at that time, it was from Mesoamerica, Aztecs, but it's actually specifically from Guatemala.
Yeah.
And then to the world. And now you can find cacao massively produced in Africa. And if you line up the equator line all the way it needs that particular temperature and particular climate to be able to grow.
Yes.
And that's the reason why a lot more now is growing in Africa, because everything was migrated, but it's not from Africa. It's originally and the cacao itself is a pod, and inside you'll find these nice beans that once you roast them and you grind them, then you create cacao. And then chocolate comes after, when you add the milk and all the other stuff to be able to make the actual thing that went to Europe, right back around to the US. And that's how Hershey's and all them. I always go to this one company on Instagram that talks about cacao and the story, how many years ago, and it's made with dates, really organic. And I'm like, I usually don't do that, but it gets to me. I'm like, when are you going to give a shout out to Guatemala for contributing to it? And I don't see their commercials anymore, so I think they probably blocked me. But if I get to see them, I'm like... do
you actually comment that?
Oh, yeah.
Good for you.
I say, hey, and I really don't do that, but I'm like, hello? Like, when are y'all going to give props to the people from Guatemala or the Aztecs that came up with that? Because they put a beautiful commercial and this and that, but like, nah. Give the real deal. Give the global Latin factor as to why you have cacao, why you have chocolate these days. It took, it's been around forever and a day. Even the story that we can't even decipher yet, that something, it means something, but we just don't know exactly what it means.
Cacao is considered a food of the gods.
Yes. And by experience of my trip to Colombia, I had some, and breathing, some of the breathing exercises, and it works.
It does. It's
even when you think there's nothing more for you to be able to work out, there's things that you still
there
be
always
able to.
Is. Yes, there always is. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, if you just allow yourself the opportunity to open your mind just a little bit, you will be amazed at what God gave you to be able to heal your own body and your mind and your soul.
Yeah. So cacao is also a plant medicine.
Yes,
so if
it
you
is.
have are an antidepressant, something like that, you got to be very careful because, like you said, it does open your heart. So you have to be. It's a medicine.
It is.
It's
It
not.
is.
We now it's all diluted in chocolate with milk, but
When you serve cacao, it's not, and there's a way to serve it in ceremony, so that's the reason why I took this course, because I wanted to know. I thought to myself, if I'm going to serve cacao and have a cacao ceremony, then I need to know where it came from, why it's served, and just know all the ins and outs about it. And it was beautiful. It really was.
I like your the whole complete process of you doing something. For example, even the tamales. You go back to the history of the tamales, of how they used to carry their food to go to whatever they were working in, have something that they were able to eat as they were working, instead of they couldn't go back home
No, they couldn't.
to dinner and right back to
And there
work.
was no microwave.
There was no cars, no microwave. So you kind of sort of have a little compact thing to be able to carry your food and things like that. So it's kind of neat. All right. One thing is creating or making tamales, but the other one is innovating tamales, as you have. And you have a variety of different tamales. Of course, you told us what your favorite one that you like to make. But what makes you want to think... first of all, some people can get like crazy about tamales and like, what is that? Why are you putting that on it? But what made you want to say, you know what? I can be an innovator and I can create these different tamales and see what people say, see what people's palate is like. And maybe they like, maybe they don't, and I stick to the traditional ones. But at least I tried.
Yeah. So for me, I think because there's times that I go on a plant diet, and there's times in my life where I've had like just stomach issues, and the doctor says, okay, no more meat for you, Hilda. Like, you need to eat healthier, this or that. I feel like tamales for me are so important that everybody should be able to eat them, no matter what your restrictions are.
Right.
And for a lot of people, either for health restrictions or religious restrictions, they don't eat pork. So I decided to create this chicken tamal that has no pork product at all. So it's the masa doesn't have pork. I actually use vegetable shortening instead. And the chicken, everything, no tiene nada de puerco. So anybody that's either has high blood pressure or any medical reasons, they can still eat them. And for me, it was like, I wanted to make sure that there was nobody out there that wouldn't be able to taste the tamales. And that's the reason why I came up with the vegetarian tamales as well. I thought to myself, there's times that I don't want to eat meat, or, I'm in dieta and I can't eat it. So I want to create a tamal that anybody can enjoy.
Right.
So I've created brisket tamales with hatch chili sauce. I've created the tomatillo sauce, the chicken tamales. I even do custom. People ask me sometimes, can you make this tamal with this sauce? I've made pork tamales with green sauce. I think that tamales are endless. You can add so many things. The other day, last week actually, I was in Fort Worth and a lady saw me and she said, "You're the tamal lady, aren't you?" And I said, "I am." And it was kind of nice, that somebody recognized me. And she said, "Can you make some tamales de dulce with like raisins and coconut?" She's like, "That's what I grew up eating."
Tamales de grana.
Yes.
With the red tint.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, what she said, she goes, "I grew up eating those tamales." And it's like people long to have something of their childhood that they can remember. So for me, that's what kind of motivates me to do that.
Awesome. And as far as because you've been in a feature in a particular magazine, right?
I was featured in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Yes, as one of the top places to buy tamales from a home-based business in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And this is funny, but I didn't even know I was going to be featured on there. I actually found out because someone called me and said, "Hey, I found you on the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I'd like to order tamales." And I I'm like, "Wait, what? I'm where?"
It's still there, by the way, the article.
Yes, it's still there.
I'll put it in the description.
Yes. And you know what? It's, I'm just so proud. Honestly, I'm proud because for me, it's not me. It's our culture that's on there, for people to see that, that we're here. And we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I'm proud of you too.
Thank you.
And eventually we're going to have our own tamal episode exploring the history of everything.
There you go.
And I do deep dives on those things.
Yeah, we can have a culinary shop so we can explain to people how the tamales are made and why they're made. So,
yeah. What is a fun fact about tamales that people might not realize, because there's myths also about they used to use human meat to sacrifice, and they use pork because pork is actually closer to actual human flesh and blah blah blah. There's like that's a real deal, by the way.
Oh my God.
There's stories about that too. Pozole too. Pozole.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Let's see. A fun fact about tamales. They take longer to cook than people think.
You gotta dance to them.
Yeah,
make them cook quicker.
I'm
put
telling
that sauce on and
people are like, "Oh, you just cook them for an hour." I'm like, "What? No, it's a very long process, not just to make the tamales, but to cook the tamales. So you have masa and you have carne, and then they're being steamed.
Yeah.
Just steamed. So it's a long process. So I think that's a fun fact that you can't make tamales and have them on your table in 30 minutes.
Have you experimented with any other way, grilling, oven, anything? It has to be vapor, right?
Yes, I tried once making some in my what is it called? My Instant Pot cooker. And that did not work like at all. All the masa came out. Then I had like a tamal pie is what it looked like, because it didn't work.
Wow.
At all. It was horrible. It was horrible. But I'll tell you one thing that did happen to me the first year I was making tamales. I was so tired. So I would go to work, I'd get off my regular job, come home, and by 6:30 I would start making tamales and I would prep them all. And then typically on Thursday night is when I would cook all these tamales, right? So I would be up till like midnight, right? And then I would leave them to cook, because they take about 3.5 hours, because they're big ollas, right? And it's about 10, 12 dozen cooking at one time. And I went into my room and I went to sleep. And I set my alarm, but I was so tired I didn't hear it. So I burned 10 dozen chicken tamales. And when I tell you, burned corn husk is not a nice smell at all. And I felt so horrible, but I don't know how God gave me the strength, but that day I went to work, I came back home, and I made them all over again, and I had them ready. I told everybody, I'm going to have them tomorrow, Saturday morning, and that's what I did.
Awesome. What made you, of course, with tamales, usually either special occasions, mostly in Christmas, New Year's, and everything. So people think that tamales are a good luck charm or a good thing to have in New Year's for prosperity or whatever. But for you, what made you want to do year-round tamales?
So when I first started the first year, I'll never forget, I met with someone that I know, a mutual friend that owns some food trucks. And I came to him and I said, hey, I want to ask you for some advice. And he was like, sure. And I said, I've been selling these tamales, and, I think that I want to do it year round, maybe get like a truck or something. And I'll never forget what he told me. And he said, I've never heard of you selling tamales. And he said, and tamales are seasonal. And I felt so small, right?
He was a friend, you said?
Yeah, or an acquaintance.
Okay, acquaintance.
Sounds
acquaintance.
Better. Yeah, an acquaintance. And I felt so small because he was like, I didn't know you sold tamales. I've never heard of your tamales. I've heard of so-and-so tamales. And I was just like, wow, like it hurt. It did, right? And I walked away, and I'll tell you, God is so amazing. I kept making my tamales, and Christmas was over, and I sold them for New Year's. And then I was like, okay, well, that's it. And my customers started calling me and saying, hey, when are you making the next tamales? We want more tamales. So last year, I literally sold tamales every other week, all the way up until August when I went to my trip to Peru.
Wow.
And for me, it was more of a it felt good to know that he was wrong. It felt really good.
I mean, it's a little bit of ego, but I get it. But I get it though.
But you know what? I was grateful for two things. I was grateful that he told me that.
Yeah.
And I was grateful that I didn't listen.
Right.
So I think with that, I've realized that you have to be careful who you ask advice from, because they may not, and he may not have meant anything by it.
Right.
He may have just said that based on his experience with his food trucks, but it kind of dimmed me a little bit for a minute,
You know what's something that I hear that it makes a whole lot more sense these days, that if you don't ask for advice for somebody that hasn't done the things that, specifically the things that you do with success.
Yes.
If you ask somebody that has no track record of any of the things that you do, I can't ask anybody for a podcast if they never done a podcast.
Yeah.
Why would I want to ask somebody, regardless if they're acquaintances, loved ones or not? I'm the one that's done it for a few years. Now, if I want to get better, I got to ask somebody that's done an even longer time to be able to be better.
Yeah.
So, because everything else that I already learned. And anybody that never done it before, they can have ideas, but there's no track record behind any success of what they're done. So why would I want to even listen to them, whether they're loved ones or not? It just doesn't matter.
Oh,
like,
I agree.
And I hear it, and whatever they want to say, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool.
You just smile.
But it doesn't matter.
That's
because
good.
they're never done it. So if they're not tamaleros specifically with the success, yes, a food truck, cool. But as far as tamales,
it was different. And I think again, like I said, everything happens for a reason. And I think that was for me to realize that I didn't need to listen to anybody but myself.
Sorry. And I didn't mean to say your ego, man.
No.
I can kind of sort of see how that
It was my ego, I mean, and I'll tell you, when I started feeling that way, I had to tell myself, like, Hila, stay grounded.
That's true.
Stay grounded, right?
That's a moment of like when you get tested at times.
Oh, yeah.
Even though you feel like you're in a better place and
yeah, and I'm not upset with him or anything like that, because I think that actually pushed me to try to do more and be more and kind of like prove to myself, like, no, something inside of me is telling me that this isn't seasonal and I'm going to go with it.
Not only that, but the customers is the one that we're seeking for. It's not something that you really had to push much because the people were like, hey, calling, like, hey, where they at? Where they at?
Yeah, and it's funny right now, I'm only making them once a month. And it's funny because customers are like, I have to wait until then? Really? You're not going to make any sooner?
She still a professional. She has to do the thing. But also, it's amazing that you're able to build a business for yourself that people are willing to seek for, and with the intentions of showing people our culture year round, not only in holidays. And shout out to that gentleman as well. Again, it just depends on the things that we hear sometimes that we just kind of sort of pushes in the direction that we kind of sort of need to hear in order for us to find guidance of which way you want to go sometimes, We're running short on time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you.
On your way over here, was there in your mind like, man, I wish he asked me this, or I wish we talk about this? Anything at all?
No, I think you covered everything. I wasn't sure what all we were going to talk about. And I think you covered every part of who I am, which I think is awesome. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor. And not only that, but just watching your social media and things like that, I just love that empowerment part that we just need more of. And I really wanted to touch up a little bit more because, again, that's just like kind of the base to getting you to where being successful and being recognized for La Tamalera, and something that could be the meaning in the sense of the word, you're empowered it, and it's like a thing that people know you from. La Tamalera, Hilda La Tamalera, social media, and everywhere they recognize you.
It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So great. Before I let you go, once again, all your social media, where can people find you at? And all the social medias. I'm going to put it in the description, but if you want to tell people.
Yes. So on Facebook, you can find me as Hilda La Tamalera. And then for my spiritual work, it's Truth Teller Goddess. And then on Instagram, I'm Hilda Garza. And then on TikTok, I'm Truth Teller Goddess.
Awesome. Any events that you have going up here in the near future? Anything you're participating in, maybe in a 2-3 week span?
So currently I'm working on a culinary shop experience that we're going to be doing at a library in Bedford. So we'll have about 60 people there. 30 of them will actually be making tamales. And then the other 30 will just be observing.
Awesome. Saludos, any shout outs to anybody in your life in general? Anybody you can think of que quieres darle saludos?
First of all, to my kids, I want to call them babies, but they're grown. They are my biggest supporters, and I love and I appreciate them so much. They even come help me sometimes when I'm running short on time and energy. But I really want to make a shout out to my mom, because she taught me how to make tamales. And because of her, I'm Hilda La Tamalera. So I'm really happy for that. And, I just want to thank all of my customers, honestly, for trusting me, for trusting my tamales, and for allowing me to be part of their home and part of their family.
I love the story that you share about the moment of time when your elbow was hurting and all of a sudden it made you think of all the sacrifice your mom made. That sometimes as kids we take for granted, we don't realize. Like sometimes the parents no tocan bocado just to make sure we fed, and we never think about they make those sacrifices for us.
We don't, we just don't. We don't appreciate them. And I think that if, as we get older, I think that's when we start to appreciate it. And sometimes for some people that's too late, and I'm just grateful that I still have the opportunity to have her.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about the work that we do now. We're breaking chains of like, now we can do it sooner than wait for we're older and all of a sudden we get all this wisdom. And
no, I agree. Late. I think for me, that's one of the biggest blessings is that I tell myself like I was able to heal in time to help my kids heal.
Yeah. That's amazing. Beautiful. What is an important lesson that you learned doing the tamales business or the spiritual business you would tell your younger self that will help somebody else out? What would that be? Let's do it for both business. Okay. Let's do it both business.
For the tamales, like, don't be afraid and don't think there's ever going to be the right time to start. Mm-hmm. The business itself is going to teach you what to do, what not to do. And just go for it. Don't allow other people to influence your dreams and your desires because they're yours. And as long as they're yours, you can build it and create it however you want it.
If you have a passion for it, believe me, you'll find the answer for it. Because the number one factor of entrepreneurs is just they got started and they figure out as they were doing it.
Yes. And I think fear is what stops so many people. It's the fear of not making it. But if you stop and you think, well, you didn't have it before anyway.
Not only that, let's say if you didn't make it, it's a lesson learned.
It is.
Okay, it's not for you. Try something else.
Yeah, no, I agree.
What about the spiritual part?
The spiritual part, if I could tell myself something.
That would tell your younger self that will help somebody else out, what would that be?
Love yourself. Love yourself and have grace for yourself. And I think that's the most important thing is to learn to love oneself. If I would have learned to love myself, I think I would have saved myself from so many heartbreaks and so many mistakes.
Yeah.
But I also believe that each one of those has molded me to be the medicine woman that I am today. And I feel like there was a point in my life where I always asked, like, why does everything happen to me? And today I'm so grateful all of those things happened. Mm-hmm. Because of them, I'm able to have more compassion and grace for people that are going through it. Amazing.
Love it. Usually throughout my day when I wake up, well, sometimes I say, I'm not immortal, I am mortal, and I will die one day. I heard it from this guru gentleman from India. Not to terrorize me, scare me, or frighten me or anything like that, but it's a reality in life, right? It's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're not here forever. With that, I wish you a very long, prosperous life. With everything said and done, what do you want people to think and feel about your life?
Man, that's a hard question. I think if there was one thing I would want people to like remember me by and say about my life is that I was true to who I am and I wasn't afraid to stand up and shout it out to everybody what I believe in and who I am, and that, that I showed everybody love and compassion as much as I could.
Yeah. Do you think the healing or the tamales is somewhat of your calling, or you're still kind of sort of looking through to see what is it for you?
I think it is part of my calling, honestly. It's funny because, my healing came first and me being a medicine woman came before the tamales. And when the tamales started, I felt like, oh, I'm putting my medicine woman aside to make tamales. And then I realized, no, it's all one. It really is, I think my tamales have allowed people to see the kind of like the normal side of me, right? And then they're able to also see and appreciate the spiritual person, the medicine woman that's here to share my love and guidance with you as well, and not just my tamales.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I met you. As soon as I met you, it was like, oh man, she's so neat. She's so approachable, so nice, loving. And then again, you had an option for me, and it was even better because I was tearing them up. I think I ate them that day, all of them.
Did you? Oh, that's good. I'm glad.
It was freaking good.
I actually gave some of those vegan tamales to people that aren't vegan. And they actually like, man, these are actually really good because I try to make sure they have flavor.
Yeah.
Flavor is so important.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then again, I just was seeing everything that you were posting because a lot of people don't realize that if you're going to be here, you're going to be under the microscope with me. I'm going to be checking everything you do because if it's just something that I just feel it doesn't align to,
Right.
I'm not looking for saints or anything like that, right? I'm not saying that. But if it just doesn't align with the things that I just don't conform with, it just doesn't, it's not for me and it's not what I want to put out to the world. Again, I'm not going to.
Right.
So if you was like somebody that was a negative,
a negative tamalera,
negative Nancy and this and that, and all of a sudden, like, I just don't want her here. I just don't. I'm not saying we always have to be positive because it's almost hardly impossible. But if you set yourself with great intentions to be able to be better for the world than not, then I would love to have you here. But if you're not, then maybe at this time, in a moment of time, you're not for me, and that's okay. Yeah. Maybe there's more growth to do, and I'm not saying I'm like exactly where I need to be, and I'm more enlightened, and then I'm already supreme and everything. But at the same time, it's like I have to be to where my level is as far as what I want to put out.
I agree.
Because I have to encourage and empower people, and our comunidad needs it so much. Of everything that's going on, irrelevant to everything, it's like, this is where it's at.
I agree.
Showing you an amazing example, even though, you got pregnant young, had to get a GED, but you still succeeded in professionalism. You still were able to seek and saw an opportunity to be able to be a leader. Now, you could have got stuck, yet you found the path to be able to grow even bigger, to be able to lead those individuals to be able to better. And in that journey, you found something even bigger for yourself. And without a shadow of doubt, Hilda La Tamalera, truth teller, you are a global Latin factor. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
This was another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast. Remember to subscribe to the channel right now. I swear that you are going to be inspired. Not only that, but you're going to find an amazing story, an amazing individual here in the community doing amazing things, empowering our comunidad. And remember, we are just like you. We are people. We are the spice and flavor in this melting pot that it is the world. Till next time.